The nation's banks are currently coping with an unprecedented number of new mortgages, with buyers often bidding on homes before having their finance approved. The rush to own a home has grown during the pandemic, with low interest rates part of the reason. Peter White is the Managing Director of the Finance Brokers Association of Australia and joins us now. Good morning, Peter. So what's your reaction to these high numbers of new mortgages being written?
Good morning and thanks, Ros. Yes, there is a significant amount of mortgages being written at the moment, and largely driven from long-term sustained low interest rate environments. And of course, we've also got people wanting to make changes in their location, so moving to more regional areas away from cities. And this is really driving a high number of mortgages at this point in time.
I mean, some of the figures, Peter, are astonishing, aren't they? Quoted that in WA there's been a 664% increase in loans taken out by first-time home owners, home loaners, if you like, since this time last year.
Yes, I'm not got any confirmation on that particular piece of data, but there certainly has been an increase everywhere, and in Western Australia and all states across the country. And again, it's that low interest rate environment, and also, very importantly, the government stimuluses in different states that have also supported first home buyers to get into the marketplace. And I guess the thing they've got to watch is that with the drive in demand comes an increase in property prices. So if they want to get into the marketplace, they need to do it sooner than later.
So who's taking out these loans, Peter? Are they first-time home loaners or people returning from overseas? What do you think?
Yeah, Ros, there's actually quite a mixture of all of those things. So you have a lot of people who are existing home buyers looking at buying another property, selling their existing one, and then moving elsewhere, whether it's a sea change or tree change, depending on what they'd like to do to move away from cities. And of course, the first home buyers are jumping to get back into the marketplace, or to get into the marketplace, I should say, whilst the opportunity of low interest rates enables them to. Some of the challenges, though, for the first home buyers market, which has been offset a little bit by the government grants, is that with the demand in people wanting property is pushing property prices up. So the longer you wait, the more that gets away from you, the more deposit you need, the harder it becomes for the first home buyer. So it's one of those chicken and egg games a little bit, can't wait too long. But at the same token, the market is jumping very quickly, and there's a broad demographic that is buying at the moment and taking opportunities because of the current environment that we're in.
Some people are buying as an investment, I guess.
Yeah, you've got investment property as well. I mean, there's a strong demand by people who are renting to get access to properties to rent. So there's quite a diversity there with the investors as well. If they can get the right property at the right price. I mean, as an investor, you tend to be a bit more sensitive. You don't want to pay too much for the property if you can't get the rental return on it. So there's a balance in all of that mix.
And Peter, are people getting financing in place before they buy a property usually, or is there a dash to get the loan finalised once they've been successful at an auction or had an offer accepted? And what are the dangers of doing it that way?
Yeah, this is the challenge. So, yes. Yeah, so this is one of the dangers that it goes on in the marketplace, is that people rush to auctions and they get caught up in the emotion of what's going on and potentially overbid for the property price. So it's extremely important to get what we would call a pre-approval for a property before you go to auction, so you know how much it is you can afford to borrow, and then you can take into account the costs associated with stamp duties and so on in buying the property, how much deposit you need, and then bid sensibly and within what you can afford to do, and don't overextend, because that then creates a whole lot of new anxieties and challenges for you when you suddenly realise what you've bid for you can't afford if you've gone too far from what you can actually afford to repay.
Peter, what's happening with the banks and institutions who are writing these mortgages? There was a big tightening up of lending criteria, wasn't there, at the time of the Banking Royal Commission? Have those restrictions now been eased? Is it now easier to get a loan than it used to be?
I don't know if it's right to say they've eased. I mean, the banks and lenders all operate under what's called responsible lending obligations, and have done since the current laws which operate for consumers, the National Consumer Credit Protection Act. That responsible lending was in place way before then. So they're still in place today. But In one respect, yes, it is easier to get a loan because interest rates are cheaper. That means the assessment of that repayment is less, which means you can afford to borrow a bit more. And that can help make it easier to actually obtain your loan. But the principles of credit assessment are still as rigid, still as rigorous as what they were before.
Peter White, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.